At the moment, as a church, we are going through a series called Big Questions. And the obvious reason for that is that in times like this, big questions do come to the surface again, and it's appropriate and it's right for us as a church to be looking at those, because that's where people are at. They're asking the big questions of life. They're asking the big questions about the future. They're asking the big questions of God. Is there a God? And what is God's role in everything that's going on right now? And Christians and non-Christians alike need to ask and answer those questions. And I think one of the things that God is saying to us as a church, both collectively and individually in our walk, he's wanting to ask us, are you wrestling with those questions? See, when I think of the word wrestling or tussling, I don't see that as a negative word at all. Actually, I think wrestling with issues and working them through is part of our calling as believers. Philippians tells us to work out our faith with fear and trembling. Really, that's about with awe and with responsibility. The Bible also tells us that in this life, we will always be looking through it as if we were looking at a glass that was dim. It's not completely clear. In other words, we won't always have all the answers to all of the questions, but we are invited to wrestle them. It's interesting that Jesus never reacted negatively to a question that he was asked when he was on the earth. In fact, he answered them with honesty, and sometimes his answers put people off, but he never stopped people from asking those questions. And I think one of the things that I believe that as Christians we are being challenged to in this moment is, as we are wrestling with those questions, it leads us to a place where in our conversation with those who don't know God, perhaps we paint a fuller picture or more realistic picture or more vulnerable picture than perhaps we used to. People that don't know Jesus, I don't believe they're looking for answers to every question, but I think they are looking for realism. They are looking for vulnerability. They are looking for people who are prepared to say, do you know what? I'm working this through myself. Why don't you work this through with me? You see, when I go to the cinema, I don't go and watch the film 15 minutes in unless I'm late through laziness. If I was to sit down and watch a TV program, I wouldn't turn it on half an hour in. If I was trying to tell my friend about this great film I saw, I wouldn't tell them about half of the film or 3/4 of the film. I'll tell them about the whole film. And I believe that the challenge, the mandate for us that are seeking to follow God with all our hearts, our souls, our minds, and our strength is to be committed to painting a whole picture to those who don't know Jesus. And part of that picture is the fact that we have unresolved questions. We're not to sell something to people that is not true or is not the whole picture. The reality is this: when you come to Christ, you will have as many or if not more questions than you did when you weren't following him. And part of our commitment to discipleship is that we walk that journey with honesty, with integrity, with openness, and with vulnerability. So my continued encouragement to you and to myself is to work out our faith with fear and trembling, with awe and responsibility, with authenticity, so that then when we connect with others, they see that we have a very real journey going on in our own life, and we're painting a picture of faith as one where we're invited to seek God with all of our hearts, realizing that we may never understand everything, but God holds our hand through it all. Be blessed as you seek to follow him.